Sam stared up at the ceiling while Ben adjusted the blanket around his legs. I know I need a therapist to talk about the trauma, Sam admitted quietly, but my former therapist was the cause of it. The room went silent for a second. Ben leaned back in the chair beside the bed and rubbed his face tiredly. I get it, Ben said softly. He lied to both of us. Fake documents saying Sam Smith had a low IQ and severe autism. I thought I was helping you. Sam swallowed hard. I know that now. Ben looked at him carefully, almost like he expected Sam to yell at him. But back then, Sam continued, I thought my own brother saw me as broken. Ben's eyes watered instantly. I never thought you were broken. Sam looked down at the padded blanket over his lap. You signed the papers. Ben nodded slowly. I did, his voice cracked, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Before Sam could answer, Tom quietly walked back into the room carrying Sam's nighttime medication cup and feeding tube supplies. Tom stopped after noticing the tension. Bad timing. Sam shook his head, nah, just family trauma. Tom sat carefully at the edge of the bed. Well, for what it's worth, Tom said softly, people who don't care usually don't feel guilty. Ben looked away quickly. Sam sighed. That therapist messed with everybody's head. Tom nodded, abusive people are good at making others think they're helping. Ben finally looked back at Sam. If you ever try therapy again, Ben said carefully, you pick the therapist, not me, not doctors, you. Sam thought about it for a long moment before giving a tiny nod. Okay. Tom smiled faintly. That sounded like progress. Sam smirked, don't ruin the moment. From the hallway, Jeffrey yelled again, are we watching the movie or crying all night? Tom laughed under his breath. There's Jeffrey ruining emotional growth. Sam finally laughed too, small, tired but real. Sam yelled down the hallway, we are coming. A loud finally echoed back from Jeffrey. Sam shook his head before looking at Tom. Do you want me to do this now while the movie plays? Sam asked, pointing toward the feeding tube set up beside the bed. Tom, deal with your son, will you? Tom looked offended immediately. First of all, he's your nephew. From the hallway, Jeffrey shouted, I heard that. Tom sighed dramatically and walked to the doorway. Jeffrey, indoor voice. That is my indoor voice. Ben started laughing quietly while helping Sam sit up a little higher against the pillows. Sam smirked, yeah, definitely your kid. Tom grabbed the feeding bag and began helping connect the nighttime feed. All right, Tom muttered, let's get this started before Jeffrey starts another war out there. Sam watched Tom work for a second. You got really good at this stuff. Tom shrugged. When you grow up around hospitals, wheelchairs, diapers, feeding pumps, and chaos, you adapt. Ben handed Sam the remote. What movie are we suffering through tonight? Tom looked toward the hallway suspiciously. If Jeffrey picked it, probably explosions for 2 hours. Jeffrey immediately yelled back, IT won an Oscar. Tom blinked. That somehow worries me more. Sam laughed as the feeding pump softly clicked on beside the bed. For once, the sound didn't make him feel trapped. It just sounded like home. Josh walked into the living room half asleep, rubbing his eyes. Jeffrey, bro, shut up, Josh groaned, I was asleep. Jeffrey rolled his eyes dramatically. Stop acting like a little bitch. The room instantly went quiet. Tom stood up from beside the couch and pointed toward the hallway. Jeffrey, go to your room, you're going to bed early for your bad attitude. Jeffrey stared at him in disbelief. I'm 28, Dad. Tom crossed his arms. And you're acting like a brat, you still need help getting to bed and I'm the one doing it, so let's go. We're getting you changed and in bed now. Jeffrey opened his mouth to argue again before seeing Tom's expression. You're serious? Tom nodded once. Very. Sam tried to hide his grin from the couch while the feeding pump hummed quietly beside him. Josh yawned. Honestly, he deserves it. Jeffrey pointed accusingly at Josh. Traitor. Josh dropped onto the recliner with a blanket. I value sleep more than loyalty. Ben started laughing under his breath while Tom motioned toward the hallway again. Bathroom now. Jeffrey groaned loudly but finally started moving his wheelchair toward his bedroom. This is elder abuse. Tom followed behind him immediately. You literally called your brother a bitch because he was sleeping. I was making a point. You're about to make it in a nighttime diaper if you keep talking. The living room went dead silent for half a second before Sam burst out laughing so hard he nearly disconnected his feeding tube. Josh buried his face in the couch cushion. Oh my God. From the hallway, Jeffrey yelled, "That was private information." Tom's voice echoed back calmly. Then behave privately too. The front door opened and Dea walked inside carefully carrying a large birthday cake box. The whole living room looked up. Josh blinked sleepily from the recliner. Mom, whose birthday is it? Dea looked confused by the question. It's Jeffery. Todd looked over from the kitchen. No, his birthday's next week. Dea put the cake on the table and crossed her arms. I know my kid's birthday, they came out of my body. Sam immediately started laughing into his blanket while Ben tried not to choke on his drink. Todd rubbed his forehead. I meant the party is next week. Oh. Dea pointed toward the hallway. Where is Jeffery? Todd answered casually, in bed. A second later, the bedroom door cracked open and Jeffrey appeared looking deeply offended while wrapped in his blanket. At least someone remembers my birthday besides me. Tom nearly lost it laughing from the hallway. You were literally sent to bed 5 minutes ago. Jeffrey pointed dramatically at everybody in the room. And apparently forgotten by society. Josh squinted at him. You're being extra emotional for a man wearing race cars pajamas. Jeffrey looked down. These are comfortable. Dea immediately walked over and kissed the top of his head anyway. My birthday boy. Jeffrey's tough attitude cracked instantly. Thank you. Tom leaned against the wall smirking. You still grounded though. Jeffrey sighed. I hate this family. Sam grinned from the couch. No you don't. Jeffrey looked around at everyone laughing together, the cake sitting on the table, and his mom fixing the crooked blanket around his shoulders. Yeah, he admitted quietly, I really don't. Jeffrey crossed his arms dramatically while everyone tried not to laugh. How does a guy that woke up from a coma remember his own birthday, he complained, but his whole family besides mom forgets, how does that make sense? The room got awkwardly quiet. Josh slowly pointed toward Todd. To be fair, Dad thought the party was next week. Todd immediately defended himself. Because the calendar literally says next Saturday. Dea shook her head. The party is next Saturday, his actual birthday is today. Todd blinked. Oh. Sam completely lost it laughing from the couch while his feeding pump beeped softly beside him. Wow, Sam wheezed, Jeffrey survived a coma and still has a better memory than this house. Tom pointed at Jeffrey. You are never letting this go, are you? Jeffrey looked genuinely emotional now despite trying to joke. No, he admitted quietly, because after everything I'm just happy I'm here to complain about it. That softened the whole room instantly. Dea walked over and hugged him carefully around the shoulders. We're glad you're here too. Jeffrey tried to keep his sarcastic attitude up but failed completely. Okay, that was kinda nice. Josh nodded. Disgustingly wholesome. Ben smirked. Someone write this down, Jeffrey admitted he has feelings. Jeffrey rolled his eyes. Shut up before I fake another coma. Tom sat on the edge of the bed, while Jeffrey laid under the blankets with his arms crossed. So that's why you were acting like a child earlier, Tom said softly. Why didn't you just say something? Jeffrey stared at the ceiling for a long moment before answering. Because I shouldn't have to tell my family it's my birthday, that's why. That hit harder than anyone expected. Tom's expression immediately changed from annoyed to guilty. Jeffrey sniffed and looked away. I woke up from a coma remembering everybody's birthdays, favorite foods, stupid movies, all of it, and nobody remembered mine. From the doorway, Dea quietly wiped at her eyes. Tom sighed heavily and leaned forward. You're right. Jeffrey looked surprised. Tom nodded. You shouldn't have had to say anything. The room stayed quiet except for the soft humming of the house and distant movie sounds from the living room. Tom gently fixed the blanket around Jeffrey's shoulders. But for the record, Tom added quietly, you acting like a menace all evening didn't exactly help your case. Jeffrey gave a tiny laugh despite himself. I was being dramatic on purpose. Oh, I noticed. Jeffrey finally looked over at him. You really forgot. Tom winced. I mixed up the party date with your birthday, still my fault though. Jeffrey was quiet again before muttering. At least Mom remembered. Tom smiled faintly. She would remember if you were born on Mars. That finally made Jeffrey laugh a little more. Tom stood up and reached for the bedside rail. Now move over. Jeffrey blinked. Why? Tom grabbed an extra blanket from the chair. Because if my son's ending his birthday upset, then I'm sitting here until he falls asleep. Jeffrey tried rolling his eyes but looked emotional again instead. You're so old. And you're still grounded. Jeffrey sighed dramatically and scooted over anyway. Worst birthday ever. Tom smirked while pulling the blanket over both of them. Yet somehow you're smiling. From his bedroom, Jeffrey yelled down the hallway. Josh, press play. From the living room, Josh yelled back immediately. You're in your room, you can't even see the TV. Jeffrey rolled his eyes while laying in bed beside Tom. My ears work. Sam burst out laughing from the couch. He's got a point. Josh shouted back again, that's not how movies work. Jeffrey crossed his arms dramatically. I can still follow the plot. Josh paused. Honestly, with most action movies, fair. Tom shook his head while adjusting Jeffrey's blanket. You are literally grounded from the living room. Jeffrey smirked. You never said I was grounded from audio. Tom stared at him for a second before laughing despite himself. That is the dumbest technicality I've ever heard. Jeffrey grinned proudly. Thank you. A second later, the movie intro music started playing loudly through the house. Jeffrey relaxed back into the pillows immediately. There we go. Josh yelled from the living room one last time. If you ask what's happening every 5 minutes, I'm mooting it. Jeffrey shouted back without hesitation. Then describe it better. The next morning, the house was quiet except for the sound of cartoons playing softly in the living room. Linda walked into the kitchen holding a handmade birthday card covered in stickers and crooked marker hearts. Mom, Dad, she said sadly, I forgot to give Jeffrey his birthday card. Tom looked up from his coffee. Just hold on to it until he wakes up. Linda nodded before Tom added gently. Can you give your mom and me a second? Linda nodded, her small hand already clutching the handmade card. Okay. She carefully set the card down on the counter, a beacon of colorful construction paper and crooked marker hearts, then skipped back toward the living room, leaving the quiet hum of the refrigerator in her wake. As soon as the child was gone, the air in the kitchen tightened. Dea turned to Tom, her expression a mix of disbelief and resignation. Even Linda remembered, she said, her voice low and edged with frustration, and she forgets to brush her teeth sometimes, she's 7. Tom let out a heavy sigh, rubbing the bridge of his nose. She's 7, he repeated, but his defense was weak. Dea's gaze narrowed as she pointed toward the hallway, a dramatic gesture that demanded accountability. That's my point, Tom, that's exactly my point. He finally conceded, his shoulders slumping. All right, we messed up. Dea crossed her arms over her chest, the posture confirming her verdict. Our grown son woke up from a coma and still remembered everybody's birthdays. Meanwhile, this entire family needed a 7-year-old and a cake box to figure it out. Just as the silence settled, a tired voice echoed down the hallway, cutting through the tense atmosphere. I can still hear you guys. Tom and Dea froze, caught red-handed. A moment later, a sleepy-looking Jeffrey slowly wheeled into the kitchen doorway. His hair was a mess, and his familiar blanket was still wrapped tightly around his shoulders. Tom pointed a finger, a reflex of parental authority mixed with surprise. Why are you awake already? Jeffrey offered a weary smirk. Trauma. Dea immediately crossed the distance, kissing the top of his head despite the sarcasm. Well, good morning, birthday boy. Jeffrey sighed with exaggerated drama. Thank you, I will continue emotionally recovering from this betrayal for at least 6 business months. Tom chuckled, hiding his smile in his coffee cup. That sounds about right. He put his mug down and stood. Come on, Jeffrey, let's get you changed, then your iced coffee will be ready. Jeffrey nodded instantly, the promise of caffeine overriding his dramatic angst. Okay. As they moved toward the hallway, Tom pointed a finger at him in warning, and don't milk it. Jeffrey looked up with innocent eyes. Which one, the coma or the birthday? The kitchen went dead silent. Dea had to cover her face to hide a laugh, and Tom stopped moving, slowly turning back around to face his son. Tom stopped walking and slowly turned around. I see what you're doing. Jeffrey grinned. I have no idea what you mean. You found a joke that makes everyone feel guilty. Maybe. And now you're going to use it for the next 10 years. Maybe. Tom sighed dramatically. See, this is why I knew you were feeling better. Jeffrey laughed while Tom helped him toward his room. You forgot my birthday, this is valuable material. From the kitchen, Dea called out. He's got a point. Not helping, Tom yelled back. A few minutes later, while Tom finished helping Jeffrey get ready for the day, the smell of fresh coffee drifted through the house. Jeffrey smiled. You know, despite the emotional damage, this is a pretty good morning. Tom rolled his eyes. Emotional damage. Yes. You got cake. Yes. You got presents. Yes. You got iced coffee. Yes. You got 3 hugs from your mother before 9 a.m. Jeffrey thought about it. Okay, maybe my suffering is being slightly exaggerated. Tom laughed. Slightly. Jeffrey smirked. All right, extremely exaggerated. That's the Jeffrey we know. After Tom finished helping him get ready, Jeffrey took a sip of his iced coffee and grinned. You know, I'm being pretty reasonable about all this. Tom nearly choked on his drink. Reasonable. Jeffrey nodded. Yeah, I was going to pull the disabled card, but I know that's too far. Tom immediately pointed at him. Thank you for recognizing that. Jeffrey shrugged. I had a whole speech planned too. Oh no. Oh yes. Jeffrey cleared his throat dramatically. As a disabled birthday survivor of both a coma and parental forgetfulness. Tom started laughing before he could finish. Absolutely not. From across the room, Dea shook her head. The fact that you had a speech prepared is concerning. It was a very good speech. I doubt that. It included statistics. Tom groaned. There were no statistics. There could have been. At that point, 7-year-old Linda walked in carrying the birthday card she had forgotten to give him. Oh, Jeffrey. She handed it to him proudly. I remembered yesterday but forgot to give it to you. Jeffrey carefully opened the card. Inside was a drawing of the whole family holding hands, along with a giant cake and the words, Happy birthday, Jeffrey, love Linda. Jeffrey stared at it for a moment. Well, he said softly, this is better than the speech. Linda smiled. You like it? I love it. Tom smiled from the kitchen. There, that's your real birthday present. Jeffrey looked down at the card again and nodded. Yeah, it kind of is. For once, nobody made a joke. The room was quiet for a moment before Jeffrey ruined it himself. I'm still bringing up the forgotten birthday at Christmas, though. Tom groaned. There he is. Later that night, after the house had mostly settled down, Dea was sitting beside Tom on the couch. Dea smirked. You know, now I know Jeffrey is definitely your son. Tom looked over. Why? Dea laughed. Because if we forgot your birthday, you'd act exactly the same way. Tom immediately pointed at her. When? Dea didn't even hesitate. 3 years ago, remember when nobody wished you a happy birthday until dinner? Tom groaned instantly. Oh, come on. Dea sat up straighter. No, seriously, you spent the whole day pouting. I was not pouting. You absolutely were. Tom crossed his arms. Without us, half these people wouldn't even be here. Dea stared at him. Oh, don't be a damn hypocrite. Tom blinked. What? Dea pointed toward the hallway where Jeffrey was already asleep. It's okay when you get upset about your birthday, but when Jeffrey acts the same way, you put him to bed like he's 6 years old. He's 23 now. Tom opened his mouth. He was acting like he was 6. Because he was hurt. Tom paused. Dea continued. You weren't upset because people forgot a date, you were upset because you felt forgotten. That's exactly what happened to Jeffrey. For a moment Tom didn't say anything. From the recliner, Sam looked up from his movie. She kinda got you there. Tom pointed at him. No one asked you. Sam grinned. You did the exact same thing. Traitor. I'm just saying. Dea folded her arms. You and Jeffrey are more alike than either of you wants to admit. Tom sighed heavily. Fine. Fine what? Fine, maybe I understand why he was upset. Dea smiled victoriously. There it is. Tom shook his head. I still stand by sending him to bed. Dea laughed. Of course you do. Because he was being a brat. He got that from you too. That earned a pillow tossed in Dea's direction, which only made her laugh harder. From down the hallway, a sleepy voice suddenly called out. I heard that. The entire living room froze. Tom stared toward Jeffrey's room. How are you awake? Jeffrey's voice came back immediately. Birthday powers. Sam nearly fell off the couch laughing. Jeffrey grinned as Tom finished helping him get comfortable. Coffee will help. Tom raised an eyebrow. Help with what exactly? Jeffrey thought about it for a moment. The emotional damage. Tom laughed. You mean the birthday thing? Yes. Jeffrey nodded seriously. One iced coffee, extra whipped cream, and maybe a slice of leftover cake. That's a proven treatment plan. From the doorway, Dea shook her head. That is not how feelings work. Jeffrey pointed at her. Maybe not, but it's a good start. A few minutes later, they made their way back to the kitchen. Waiting on the table was Jeffrey's iced coffee, piled high with whipped cream, and a handmade birthday card from Linda. Jeffrey immediately noticed the card. What's this? Linda smiled proudly. I made it for your birthday, I forgot to give it to you yesterday. Jeffrey carefully opened it. Inside were colorful drawings of the family, several misspelled words, and a giant handwritten message. Happy birthday Jeffery, I love you. Jeffrey stared at it for a second before smiling. Okay, this is actually better than any store card. Linda beamed. Really? Really? He carefully set it beside his coffee. Tom watched the exchange and smiled. Feeling better. Jeffrey took a long sip of his coffee. About 70% better. Dea laughed. And the other 30%. Jeffrey pointed at the cake in the refrigerator. Pending further treatment. Tom sat on the edge of the bed, while Jeffrey laid under the blankets with his arms crossed. So that's why you were acting like a child earlier, Tom said softly. Why didn't you just say something? Jeffrey stared at the ceiling for a long moment before answering. Because I shouldn't have to tell my family it's my birthday, that's why. That hit harder than anyone expected. Tom's expression immediately changed from annoyed to guilty. Jeffrey sniffed and looked away. I woke up from a coma remembering everybody's birthdays, favorite foods, stupid movies, all of it, and nobody remembered mine. From the doorway, Dea quietly wiped at her eyes. Tom sighed heavily and leaned forward. You're right. Jeffrey looked surprised. Tom nodded. You shouldn't have had to say anything. The room stayed quiet except for the soft humming of the house and distant movie sounds from the living room. Tom gently fixed the blanket around Jeffrey's shoulders. But for the record, Tom added quietly, you acting like a menace all evening didn't exactly help your case. Jeffrey gave a tiny laugh despite himself. I was being dramatic on purpose. Oh, I noticed. Jeffrey finally looked over at him. You really forgot. Tom winced. I mixed up the party date with your birthday, still my fault though. Jeffrey was quiet again before muttering. At least Mom remembered. Tom smiled faintly. She would remember if you were born on Mars. That finally made Jeffrey laugh a little more. Tom stood up and reached for the bedside rail. Now move over. Jeffrey blinked. Why? Tom grabbed an extra blanket from the chair. Because if my son's ending his birthday upset, then I'm sitting here until he falls asleep. Jeffrey tried rolling his eyes but looked emotional again instead. You're so old. And you're still grounded. Jeffrey sighed dramatically and scooted over anyway. Worst birthday ever. Tom smirked while pulling the blanket over both of them. Yet somehow you're smiling. Jeffrey said. Josh, press play. Josh said, you in your room, you can't see. Jeffrey said, my ears work. From his bedroom, Jeffrey yelled down the hallway. Josh, press play. From the living room, Josh yelled back immediately. You're in your room, you can't even see the TV. Jeffrey rolled his eyes while laying in bed beside Tom. My ears work. Sam burst out laughing from the couch. He's got a point. Josh shouted back again, that's not how movies work. Jeffrey crossed his arms dramatically. I can still follow the plot. Josh paused. Honestly, with most action movies, fair. Tom shook his head while adjusting Jeffrey's blanket. You are literally grounded from the living room. Jeffrey smirked. You never said I was grounded from audio. Tom stared at him for a second before laughing despite himself. That is the dumbest technicality I've ever heard. Jeffrey grinned proudly. Thank you. A second later, the movie intro music started playing loudly through the house. Jeffrey relaxed back into the pillows immediately. There we go. Josh yelled from the living room one last time. If you ask what's happening every 5 minutes, I'm mooting it. Jeffrey shouted back without hesitation. Then describe it better. The next day, Linda said, Mom, Dad, I forgot to give Jeffrey his birthday card. Tom said, hold it until he wakes up. Can you give your mom and I a second. When Linda left, Dea said that even Linda remembered and she forget to brush her teeth sometime. Tom said she 7. Dea said that my point. The next morning the house was unusually quiet. Linda came into the kitchen holding a colorful birthday card covered in stickers and crooked handwriting. Mom, Dad, I forgot to give Jeffrey his birthday card. Tom glanced up from the coffee maker. Just hold on to it until he wakes up, he suggested, but could you give your mom and me a moment alone first? Linda nodded, clutching the card carefully as she skipped out of the kitchen. As soon as she was out of earshot, Dea leaned against the counter with a heavy sigh. Even Linda remembered, she muttered, and she still forgets to brush her teeth half the time. Tom snorted into his coffee. She's only 7. Dea pointed dramatically toward the hallway. Exactly, that's my point. Rubbing his face tiredly, Tom admitted, okay, we messed up. Dea crossed her arms over her chest. He spent the whole night joking about it, but you know as well as I do that it really hurt him. I know, Tom agreed quietly, nodding his head. From the living room, Sam called out, to be fair, Jeffrey did spend half the day acting like a total supervillain. Ben let out a quiet laugh. That's just his personality shining through. Dea glanced back toward Jeffrey's closed bedroom door. He never forgets anyone else's important milestones, not a single one. Tom stared down into his coffee cup. I know, he repeated softly. A few moments later, Linda suddenly popped her head back into the kitchen. By the way, I brushed my teeth, she announced. Tom blinked in surprise. Good job. Linda nodded proudly. I didn't want to lose an argument I wasn't even supposed to be part of. Sam nearly choked on his laughter from the couch while Dea covered her face trying to suppress her own giggles. Tom just pointed toward the hallway. Yep, she's definitely our kid.